Think that when we have a blind date from a visitor from another star, all bets are off. We shouldn't assume anything. And we should assess the risk given the data that we have. It's just like the Richter scale for assessing the risk
A
from
new,
earthquakes.
terrifying chapter in humanity's cosmic story began with an alert from a deep space observatory in Chile. It wasn't the expected detection of a distant galaxy or a familiar comet. It was the identification of 3I Atlas, the third interstellar object ever discovered, and it was heading directly toward our solar system. What made this particular visitor so profoundly alarming was not merely its origin beyond our sun's gravitational embrace, but its utterly improbable and ultimately impossible behavior. Initially believed to be on a predictable natural trajectory, this Manhattan-sized object had performed an impossible maneuver, defying the fundamental laws of gravity, thereby shattering all preconceived notions of natural cosmic phenomena. With this unprecedented deviation, every major telescope on Earth, from the venerable observatories in the Andes Mountains to the cutting-edge facilities across the globe, was immediately retasked to track its path. The new calculations yielded a horrifying trajectory. Its path was aligned with an almost flawless precision to the ecliptic plane, the flat disk where all the planets in our solar system orbit. The statistical probability of an interstellar object randomly arriving with such a perfect alignment is a staggering 1 in 500. Furthermore, the timing of its arrival into the inner solar system was unnervingly fine-tuned, almost as if orchestrated. The data, meticulously gathered and analyzed, quickly confirmed humanity's worst fears. 3I Atlas was no longer a mere scientific curiosity. It was an incoming threat. The scientists who had discovered its new, unnatural path were now gripped by a profound existential terror. This object, which had broken every known rule of celestial mechanics, had taken center stage in the vast, silent theater of space. The initial detection came from the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, ATLAS, in Hawaii. What was first recorded as a faint smudge of light, barely discernible against the backdrop of distant stars, was initially designated with the technical, almost mundane name, 3I Atlas. The 3I simply denoted it as the third interstellar object ever detected. However, it quickly became evident that this was no ordinary visitor from another star system. As astronomers diligently gathered more data, a startling and deeply unsettling picture began to emerge. The first characteristic that immediately set 3I Atlas apart was its sheer, unbelievable size. Early brightness calculations, based on the assumption that it was a solid rocky object, suggested a diameter of at least 12 miles. To contextualize this, a rock of that magnitude is larger than Manhattan Island itself, hurtling through the cosmic void. Previous interstellar visitors, such as the famous Oumuamua, were hundreds of times smaller, barely the size of a city block. The statistical odds of an object this massive simply randomly showing up in the tiny window of time humanity had been actively observing the cosmos were astronomically low. Statistically, one would expect to see a rock of this size drift through our cosmic neighborhood perhaps once every 10,000 years, or even longer. For 3I Atlas to be the third such object detected was, to put it mildly, deeply suspicious. The mainstream scientific explanation, quickly disseminated by agencies like NASA, was reassuringly simple. It was a massive, ancient comet, a frozen relic from the birth of another star system countless millennia ago. NASA's official statements assured the public that it posed no threat and would maintain a safe distance, remaining over 150 million miles away. However, as is often the case, the universe rarely conforms to simple explanations, and the official narrative quickly began to unravel. Top scientists, including Harvard's renowned astrophysicist Avi Loeb, swiftly pointed out serious inconsistencies in the comet story. For one, 3I Atlas exhibited no discernible cometary tail. As a comet approaches the sun, its ice should heat up, sublimating to create a brilliant million-mile-long tail of gas and dust. Yet, images from the Hubble Space Telescope, the most powerful optical telescope ever built, revealed no such tail. Instead, Hubble captured something even stranger, a faint, ethereal glow that seemed to precede the object, moving ahead of it toward the sun. This was an unheard-of phenomenon, a unique signature that did not fit the profile of any comet ever observed, fundamentally challenging the natural explanation. The object was also observed to be moving at a blistering 41 miles per second, a speed twice that of the fastest rockets humanity had ever launched, further eroding the credibility of the comet hypothesis. The story began to fall apart with each new piece of data. Then, a routine observation from an observatory in the Andes Mountains detected a minute, almost imperceptible change in 3I Atlas's path. Initially dismissed as a potential error due to its minuscule nature, this deviation was soon confirmed by another observatory in Australia, and then by a third. The new data was undeniable. 3I Atlas was no longer on its predicted course. It was actively moving. Something, or someone, had deliberately altered the path of a Manhattan-sized object in deep space, setting it on a course for collision. This fact highlighted the unforgiving precision of orbital mechanics, a science of elegant, predictable paths dictated solely by gravity. Objects in space do not make sharp, unassisted turns, nor do they spontaneously accelerate. They follow the graceful, curved lines carved into space-time by massive celestial bodies. But 3I Atlas was not adhering to these rules. Even before the definitive new data emerged, its trajectory had been bizarrely perfect. Its path was aligned almost flawlessly with the ecliptic plane, where all the planets orbit. The chances of an interstellar object arriving with such a perfect alignment were statistically minuscule. It was as if it was deliberately flying down the main street of our solar system. This main street trajectory was also fine-tuned for a grand tour, calculated to bring it unusually close to Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, a cosmic sightseer hitting all the major landmarks. The odds of a random trajectory allowing for so many close planetary flybys were 1 in 20,000, a statistical impossibility that strongly suggested intentional design. Further adding to the anomaly, it was moving in a retrograde orbit, traveling in the opposite direction to all the planets. For a vessel designed to deploy smaller probes or to execute complex orbital maneuvers, this retrograde approach maximizes relative speed and allows for easier orbital insertion. The circumstantial evidence for intelligent design was rapidly piling up, forming a mountain of anomalies that defied natural explanation. Then, the new data confirmed what some scientists had secretly feared and whispered about. The slight deviation was not random. It was a controlled, non-gravitational acceleration, an engine burn. This was not the gentle, unpredictable outgassing of a comet. This was a deliberate course correction. Global space agencies utilizing their most powerful supercomputers ran the numbers repeatedly for days, but the result was always the same. The new trajectory was unmistakable. 3I Atlas had adjusted its path from what appeared to be a mere solar system flyby to a direct intercept course. Its new explicit destination, the Earth-Moon system. A silent panic began to ripple through the global scientific community. The official NASA narrative, once a comforting reassurance, was now exposed as a dangerous, deliberate lie.
This was no longer a passive visitor, it was an arrival. The question shifted from if it's artificial to why it had just turned toward our planet. Scientists were officially terrified. The object was not merely on an impossible path, it was on a direct collision course at 41 miles per second. While the world slept, fed a steady diet of calming press releases about a distant comet, a secret, undeclared war was being waged in encrypted chat rooms and secure video conferences. The conversation had shifted from the rarefied air of astronomical observatories to the strategic command centers of the U.S. Space Command and the Pentagon. New data, now corroborated by military surveillance satellites, had changed everything. The public continued to see old comforting images of a blurry dot, but in classified briefings, analysts were looking at something entirely different. The faint glow preceding 3I Atlas was now being resolved into distinct, faint, unnatural energy signatures. These were clearly not the emissions of a comet. They were the telltale signs of an energy field, perhaps a sophisticated shield or a form of exotic propulsion. Avimob's theoretical lobe scale, a ranking system from 0 for a purely natural object to a 10 for a confirmed technological one, was no longer a mere thought experiment. It became a crucial metric used in real time by intelligence agencies. In a matter of days, 3I Atlas's rating shot up from a 4 to a 7, and it continued to climb. A 7 indicated a highly probable technological origin with clear evidence of deliberate maneuvering. The terror among scientists was no longer solely about a potential impact, it was about the profound intelligence behind it. An object moving at 41 miles per second is effectively a cosmic bullet. Humanity's planetary defense systems, designed to track slow-moving asteroids years in advance, were utterly useless. There was no missile that could be launched, no weapon that could be deployed that could intercept something moving at such a velocity with so little warning. Humanity was akin to a pedestrian standing in the middle of a freeway, confronted by a silent 12-mile-wide truck flooring it directly towards them. Frantic, desperate efforts were immediately made to glean more information. The James Webb Space Telescope was hastily retasked on an emergency basis, its planned observations of distant galaxies canceled in favor of 3I Atlas. Every radio telescope on the planet, from Arecibo's successors to the giant arrays in China, began a coordinated global effort to listen. Their massive dishes were pointed at the approaching anomaly, scanning every conceivable frequency, hoping for a signal, a whisper, any sign of communication that could explain its terrifying intent. But all they heard was the cold, empty static of the void. This profound silence was in many ways even more frightening than an overt threat would have been. It was the silence of a predator that doesn't need to announce its presence, the silence of an entity whose intentions remained inscrutable. It was deafening, and the world remained blissfully unaware of the danger it faced. For our entire recorded history, humanity has stared up at the stars, asking the perennial question, are we alone? The inherent assumption, perhaps a comforting delusion, was that the answer, if it ever came, would arrive as a friendly radio signal, a gentle cosmic hello. We, as a species, had never prepared for the answer to arrive in the form of a 12-mile-wide object that had just deliberately altered its course and was heading directly for us. For decades, many had indulged in the arrogant idea that humanity represented the peak of intelligence in the universe. That profound arrogance now seemed almost suicidal. Our entire species, with all its petty wars, divisive politics, and mundane dramas, existed on a fragile blue marble, and we had just received a profound wake-up call from the cosmos. And now the chilling truth of its composition was beginning to emerge.
What nobody publicly discussed was that during the frantic, secret retasking of the James Webb Space Telescope, scientists did more than just confirm its path. They performed a spectrographic analysis, breaking down the sunlight reflecting off its surface. The results were not just impossible, they were terrifying. It was not made of rock or ice. Its surface was composed of a crystalline metallic alloy that has no known place in the natural universe. This material exhibited a tensile strength millions of times greater than anything humanity can currently manufacture. Unlike the simple iron-nickel compositions found in asteroids, this material appeared to be a metamaterial, actively reconfiguring itself on a quantum level to efficiently dissipate heat and radiation. Chillingly, analysts revisited the faint data from our very first interstellar visitor, Oumuamua. The signals, once dismissed as mere sensor noise, now revealed a faint but identical spectrographic signature. This was not just one unique object, this was a known technology, a calling card from a single, silent, and incredibly advanced civilization. This discovery only deepened the central, terrifying question, what does it want? A civilization capable of manufacturing entire city-sized objects from impossible materials, a civilization likely billions of years older than our own, would have no need for a giant rock if their intent was purely to harm us. They could deploy something infinitesimally small, biological, or something entirely incomprehensible to human understanding. So was it a message? Or perhaps a delivery? What if its primary goal wasn't to enter Earth, but to enter a stable orbit around it, to park a Manhattan-sized object in our sky, a permanent, silent moon that would irrevocably shatter our society, our religions, and our very sense of place in the universe? At this point, the theories circulating among insiders grew even wilder. Some whispered about the cosmic arc scenario. What if this wasn't an invasion, but a desperate evacuation? A final desperate act of a civilization fleeing a dying sun? They weren't conquerors, but refugees, looking for the only viable lifeboat they could find. And we, humanity, were already sitting in it. A darker, more unsettling theory suggested the object was a terraformer, a planet killer, and a world builder all in one. An automated machine designed to methodically scrub a planet of its native biology and reshape it for its masters. In this terrifying scenario, humanity wasn't even the enemy. We were simply an infestation, a microbial layer to be cleansed before the real work began. An even stranger, more philosophical idea gaining traction was that this was our final exam, that its arrival was a profound test for the Great Filter, a cosmic barrier that stops civilizations from reaching a galactic stage. Our reaction, whether we united in peace, descended into chaos, or lashed out with our primitive weapons, was being judged. Pass, and we might be welcomed into a galactic community. Fail, and we might be deemed too dangerous, pruned from the cosmic tree of life. Perhaps the most profound theory of all was that of the cosmic gardener. What if an ancient intelligence seeded life on Earth eons ago, and 3i Atlas was simply a tool of that intelligence returning to check on its garden? It wouldn't be here to harm us, but to observe, or perhaps to introduce a catalyst to accelerate our evolution. But these were all theories, speculative at best. The most immediate and terrifying possibility remained the most direct one. Perhaps the object itself was simply a transport vessel. What if its goal was to get close to Earth and release its cargo, a fleet of smaller, faster probes, as some had theorized, capable of further, more direct interaction? The original trajectory, which seemed so elegantly designed to avoid us, now felt like a calculated deception. It passed by the outer planets, perhaps subtly gathering data, observing, and only when it had a clear, unobstructed final run at the inner solar system did it reveal its true horrifying intent. It waited until it was too late for us to do anything about it. All scientific debate was now over. The speculation about its motives had become mere noise. The new data had given humanity one cold, hard, terrifying fact. It was coming, and we were not ready. The existential questions loomed larger than ever. Was this the end or a violent new beginning for humanity? Was a silent advanced intelligence coming to pass judgment on our nascent species? The answers remained locked within the impenetrable silence of 3i Atlas, accelerating towards us, bringing with it an uncertain future that hung heavy with both fear and an unsettling sense of destiny.